It's the Fightful MMA Holy Smokes podcast with Showdown Joe and Sean Ross Sapp.
Joseph, we're live.
What's going on, everybody? July 24th edition of the Holy Smokes podcast. Yours truly, Joe Ferraro, joined alongside, as always, by Sean Ross Sapp. Give him a follow online at Sean Ross Sapp. Yours truly, at Showdown Joe. We're talking mixed martial arts today. And all types of stories, results. We're going to have some pros picks later on. We'll be joined by Jeremy Stevens and Randa Markos. Sean and I will discuss our Fightful postmortem for UFC Hamburg, what happened in the main event, the co-main event, and some of the other bouts. What's going on with this 205-pound division in the UFC? You know, Anthony Smith emerges victorious. What does this mean for Shogun? Anthony Smith wants to fight Alexander Gustafsson. Gustafsson all of a sudden is injured. Daniel Cormier, the light heavyweight and heavyweight champion of the UFC, had some things to say about that with an interesting post. Lots of fights have been made. We'll get to those as well. And, of course, we will break down UFC Calgary going down this weekend. And I'm sure we will insert some professional wrestling whenever we can in there because a lot of you guys love it on the live chat. Top right of your screen. Make sure you give us a thumbs up.
Matt Riddle, WWE bound.
Oh, well, there you go. You want to kick off with that?
Nah, I don't. We'll talk about it Wednesday because I have an interview with him that'll air then. Well, I mean, people are playing coy. I'm not playing coy. He won't talk to me on the record about it, obviously. He won't. A part of the... I posted, by the way, guys, FightfulSelect.com. You get all your free stuff at FightfulMMA.com. FightfulSelect.com is ready to get early access and just additional stuff. Rankings breakdowns, retro podcasts, extra stuff. I will never put your news behind a paywall. You just might get it earlier, but he won't go on the record about it. The only way he'd do an interview with me is if I told him, hey, I will not ask you about Ring of Honor, New Japan, WWE. He's going there. I mean, what do y'all want me to say? He's going there. He will not explicitly say this to me, and of course he shouldn't. WWE does not like me, but hey. But first off, there are far more pressing, important matters. Joe, how many weeks ago did I say 100% Alexander Gustafsson was not going to fight at UFC 227?
A long time. A long time. In fact, it's some of the hilarious messages that you send me regarding anything and everything that has to do with Alexander Gustafsson when we're off the air. And
I said
even
it like three opponents ago, I think.
Yeah, it's... I look at DC's post, and he called him, you think you're elite, your elitist mentality, whatever it was. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's hard to disagree with DC when he says something like that. But this is absolutely, I don't know what to say because all my encounters and time with Alexander Gustafsson leading back to the John Jones fight here in Toronto years and years ago. I mean, we spent a full day at Canada's Wonderland, filming a whole whack of stuff with Sportsnet and just, obviously having breakfast together, lunch together, the ride there together, just all the different rides we rode together, the different segments that great guy, I love the guy, but I don't know what's going on, man. This is very, very odd, very, very strange.
I'm not going to say that Gustafsson is like some kind of bad dude, some bad person. But man, the guy, I thought that DC's post nailed it on the head. We'll get to it though. UFC Hamburg happened this weekend, and I'll be honest, there are maybe three things to talk about on this show. There's the main event, the co-main event, and I don't know, the Danny Roberts-Zawada fight was good, but, it was a good fight. Void of technique, but it was a good fight. And Jeremy Kimball retired. We'll talk about that. Jeremy Kimball, a 1-3 UFC light heavyweight, 27 years old, seemingly calls it quits after his loss to Darko Stasic on the prelims of UFC Hamburg. Now, Kimball to me always looked like the kind of guy at 205 pounds where he should either cut to 185 or stop giving a shit and fight at heavyweight. That's the type of physique he has.
Very true, yeah. I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, I don't take...
Regardless, he shouldn't be at 205.
Yeah, I don't take many things guys say after or girls say after their fights. I usually wait a week, let the dust settle. But yeah, I can see why he's upset and why he would say something like that.
By the way, guys, FightfulSelect.com. I have the first bro spot that will air over the next month with Matt Riddle. It's up there for Tier 2 subscribers. However, Kimball, I wish him the best. Just had to get that little comment in there. This was a very, very good night for the future of the UFC light heavyweight division.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at this. I mean, you have Stasic, Rakic, Anderson, and Smith, all under 30. Smith is turning 30 this month. Winning. That's good. Now, keep in mind, the real number one in the UFC's light heavyweight division can't stay in the cage. The number two holds 2 different titles and is retiring, may never fight there again. The number 3 picks and chooses his fights, can't stay in the cage, gets title shots coming off of losses. He's the most entitled light heavyweight there is. Number 4 is off selling weed somewhere and doesn't even show up to fight. Number 5 keeps getting hurt. You know where number 6 and 7 are right now, Joe? Bellator. That's where they are. Fighting at heavyweight, one of them.
Yep.
Well, what about the rest of them? Well, you've got some good prospects. You've got Dom Reyes, who I really like. You have Misha Serkinov. You have Corey Anderson. OSP's going to stick around in the mix. Volkan's going to stick around in the mix. But you have some good prospects. I think Anthony Smith isn't this wild. The guy that we're talking about getting bounced out of Victory, Strikeforce, and UFC 8 years later, essentially, is a, or not 8, 5 years later, is a light heavyweight prospect. He has transformed his career. He is not that same guy that we saw when he was 24 years old with 30 fights under his belt already. He is a much more calculated
43
guy.
fights
43 now.
belt.
I'm talking like when people thought it might be over for him. After the Roger Gracie UFC, the fight at, God, I can't remember who he fought, but he got finished in like 2 minutes with a knee bar in Fortaleza. And then when Josh Neer beat him, a lot of people thought he was done. Then he reinvented himself in Bellator. Not only that, you look back at this streak he's on. 13-2 since then. Finished all but one of those fights. And oh, by the way, he's getting performance of the nights and fights of the nights. He's done the right thing. And he called out, the way that he finished Shogun was so calculated. He used that range, which we talked about last week. I said that's how he was going to get it done if he got it done.
So, in terms of Anthony Smith, I definitely don't want to take away from his skill set, and I don't want to take away from the fact that he's a fantastic fighter. It was almost ironic when I was watching the introduction, 29-13. I'm like 29-13. If you would say someone is 29-13 in boxing, they would never be in a main event for a major promotion. This guy's headlining a show across the world in Europe versus a legend. Now, with Anthony Smith, I don't want to take away, like I said, anything from his skill set and how much he's turned his career around and how fantastic he's becoming and all that jazz in terms of what he's done and now that he's a contender. I just want to make sure we put his last 2, or at least myself, not you, but or the viewers. I want to put his last 2 victories in perspective. Okay, he defeated 2 guys that technically should not be competing in mixed martial arts anymore. I know we said a lot about Shogun leading into this fight here, and the fact that potentially he could be 1 win away from a title shot. Man, Shogun went down in this fight here like a guy that has no business being in the octagon anymore. His body can't handle it. He got just bullied. That Shogun, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more, would have just walked through whatever Anthony Smith was throwing at him. Shogun's body, like he did to Chuck Liddell. It comes up a point in your time, in your career, where you cannot take that head trauma anymore. And he just was out cold before he hit the mat. And thankfully for the referee stopping his head from bouncing off the mat. So take nothing away from Anthony Smith's skill set. I'm solely stating these 2 fights, his last 2 fights, I'm not putting too much stock in these victories because of the 2 gentlemen he defeated in Rashad Evans and Shogun Rua, both of which basically should no longer be competing. I know Rashad Evans has basically retired. Shogun says you win some, you lose some. I trained really hard for this fight. Irrelevant, man. It's done. It's too much right now. So Anthony Smith, despite the hype train that's around him right now with these past 2 victories, I do want to see him compete with somebody in the top
I do too.
10,
Well,
top
Shogun
10,
is
that's
top
not
10.
old. Yeah, that's let me fit. Yeah, in the top 10, that's not considered
Over the hill.
over the hill.
Yeah, and I mean, that is the thing. Actually, when I spoke to Matt Riddle, we talked about this fight. He said, yeah, but is that really Shogun? And to my point, I was like, well, it was Shogun enough to where if he won this fight, he was in title contention. And that's the state of the light heavyweight division more than anything. Because if Bader and Davis are still there, he's not. If Bader and Davis are still there, Shogun isn't in the conversation. But he was before. And that's the point that Anthony Smith made on our show when he talked to James Lynch last week. He thought that DC overlooked him, and he was going to force himself in that conversation. He knew this was going to happen, and it did happen. Now, Anthony Smith did the exact opposite of Corey Anderson. Corey Anderson took his post-fight and said, I'm not fighting Gustafsson. I don't know who I want next. I'm like, damn, man. Damn. But Anthony Smith immediately said, Gustafsson, I want you 2 weeks. Let's go.
See you in LA.
The right thing to do. Whether the fight was going to happen or not. The perfect right thing to do. Because, Joe, as much as, I had somebody arguing with me that OSP deserved this shot more than Smith if he were to win in 2 weeks. And I said, well, no, because OSP's gotten that shot, and he was knocked out in February. And so was Anthony Smith. The only difference is if you go from June beating Rashad Evans and retiring him, July beating Shogun Hua and eliminating him from title contention, July beating Alexander Gustafsson, to me, that is a title shot-worthy run in that amount of time. That is hot-shotting someone and them getting what they deserve. Because if he were to have beaten Gustafsson in July, August, I would be completely fine with a November Anthony Smith versus Daniel Cormier fight if Cormier was ready.
No ifs, ands, or buts. It's sort of the same run that, Volkan Ozdemir went on, right?
Exactly, yeah.
You come into the UFC, whatever, and then you start beating these top-tier guys to the point it's like, well, you have to give me a title shot, right? So with Anthony Smith, and we used to talk about it long before the Holy Smokes podcast right here at Fightful MMA, before the Holy Smokes, when we had the original podcast before, and I wrote articles about it, and the importance of getting your message out on the biggest platform possible. When it comes to UFC fighters, the biggest platform they have is inside the octagon and their post-fight interviews, whether it's with Joe Rogan, Dan Hardy, or whomever. That is the biggest platform, not your social media, per se, not the post-fight press conference, not leading up to the fight. The biggest platform that gets the most eyeballs and that gets talked about the most with whatever you say is that post-fight interview. So with Anthony Smith saying what he did after the fight, giving love to Jimmy Manoa, very good, but then said, you know what, Gustafsson needs an opponent, I'm in, I will see you in LA. Dude, that is absolute gold. Gold, 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 gold. That's how you do it. Whether you deserve it or not, it's gold. But then the Gustafsson, his injured stuff comes out? What?
We have some breaking news.
Mm-hmm.
UFC 230. Now, I'm going to check this before. Yeah, it is confirmed. UFC 230, November 3rd at MSG. Paulo Costa against Yoel Romero.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa.
Ooh, boy.
Whoa.
Middleweight.
Does this go back to me telling Elias Theodore to pay attention to this Paulo Costa kid? He's got to earn his stripes?
Yeah.
That's right, Elias.
We're going to talk a lot more about a lot of the fights that are being made because there are a ton being made. But I think the light heavyweight division glowed up, as the kids are saying, on Saturday night. And it's so funny, we compared this to the Ozdemir run. It's even shorter. It would have been even shorter than the Ozdemir run. We're hypothetically saying that Anthony Smith would have beaten Gustafsson. Gustafsson could have cleaned his clock, but Ozdemir beat OSP in February, Serkinov in May, Jimmy Manoa in July. That's a 5.5, 6 month essentially run. Anthony Smith would have done this in 3. In 3. And the name value of Smith's would have been much higher, even though the quality of the first two probably higher for Ozdemir. But Corey Anderson picked up a big win over Glover Teixeira. Hey, this is one I picked last week. I said Corey Anderson's getting it done. You didn't believe me. You didn't believe me. People get old, Joe. Maybe you're there.
Did you tweet? I put 5 on this one. Or you did?
Oh, I did put 5 on it. Well, not literally, but
yeah, only because and Glover Teixeira is now beginning that dissension, right? Like, in my opinion, leading up to this fight, I thought for sure, because Corey Anderson still can't convince me that he's that damn good. He's just very inconsistent. But hot damn, they put a great game plan with Glover Teixeira, and Glover Teixeira, Father Time's catching up. Seems like he's starting to look old in the octagon. Right? Great fighter, love that guy. Still would have him over my house. He wants to help build a deck. Like, the guy's just a blue-collar, handy type of dude. Funny as hell, but I thought for sure he still had enough in his tank, or at least in his skill set, to take out Corey Anderson. And Corey Anderson won all 3 rounds, 30-27, on all 3 judges' scorecards, and I agree with them. Those guys, Mark Henry and all, and God, I hate when they go to the corner and they listen to Mark Henry barking out instructions. It's cool because you can hear the codes they're using, but he looks like he's going to have just a pulmonary attack there. He's just going crazy and then yelling and screaming all these different codes. I like it when it does it with Frankie. I remember in Japan when Frankie fought Ben Henderson, and all you could hear was Mark Henry barking out F-17, Boeing jet. Like, what? What is this stuff? And you can hear it throughout the whole arena. And Frankie was executing. So they've got these codes, but for the viewer themselves, you got no idea what he's saying. But they put together a fantastic game plan, Sean, and he emerges victorious, looking pretty good.
So, yeah, I do. I think he looked good too. We're going to look at the Fight Matrix rankings right now at light heavyweight. In a post-Cormier era, right now, here's what we're looking at. I had a lot of people saying, oh, this division is trash, it's trash. Give it a year. Give it a year. I'm telling you, give it a year. Same with the middleweight division. John Jones, 31 years old. Alexander Gustafsson, 31 years old, but he may be at the end of his leash, we don't know. Ozdemir, 28. Corey Anderson, 28. Anthony Smith, 29. You have Jimmy Manuwa, he's probably heading down the tunnel, but you have Serkinov, 31. Rakic, 26. Dom Reyes, 28. Jordan Johnson is 29 years old. And then you have, gosh, I wish I could pronounce Mikal's last name. Fellow that beat Roundtree at the end of last year. He's 22 or 23 years
Roundtree,
old.
Right?
Yeah. Stasic is 26. Roundtree's 28. Jake Collier's 29. Devin Clark, 29. You got some real young, good fighters that are coming up. We are going to see the next generation of great light heavyweights coming very soon. This is the same reason why I hate when people denigrate Mighty Mouse Johnson. They say, oh, well, his resume. If he weren't there, 3 or 4 of the people that he beat would have been champions. To me, I think it's more impressive when you don't let anybody else become a champion. That's where we're at. Corey Anderson looked very good. Hamburg was not a fun show to watch. It tied the record. 10 decisions on a card, 9
I was waiting for you to text me on that one, or what's that, message me on that one. I was like, when I got that tweet, I was like, are you kidding me? All these things are going the distance. I wasn't home, and I'm like, it's going to be a long Sunday night, Monday, and pretty much Tuesday. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, we got a bunch of fights coming up. Romero Costa, you mentioned that, or we just mentioned that one. November 3rd, Madison Square Garden. Looks like they are stacking the deck for that show. Yep. I am surprised that Borrachina is not headlining a show in Brazil, to be honest with you. That's
their star. I mean, I was looking at you were going through the Fight Matrix rankings, and I thought to myself, we're naming all these light heavyweights. I'm like, wouldn't it just be grand if the UFC put on some sort of tournament with these light heavyweights? You want to build stars? And I just don't get it. I don't get why they don't take that model. Are they that upset when they bought Pride and Pride used to do it? Do they hate it that much that Ryzen does it? Do they can't stand it because Bellator does it? It's just it's a winning formula. It's such a winning. You want to build stars? Put them in tournaments. I don't get it. Again, I was having the conversation with a friend of mine on Saturday. We were talking about this card, Sean, the UFC Hamburg card, and then I was talking to my old boss from Sportsnet, who's running around. And I will say this to you before I get sidetracked: don't discount DAZN. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll discount the name. Okay. I'm not going to discount their quality. Since clowning them a couple weeks ago, I've heard some very positive things.
Very, very, very positive things I've heard about DAZN. I'm just throwing that out there.
So, now, listen, if DAZN wants to give us some money. I'm okay with that. Holy smokes, we'll do a little crossover. I'm sure Jimmy would love that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm sitting here, Sean. I think I broke one of my toes, and I'm just squirming here. I apologize if you just see me keep Rain Man in here. One of my right toes is just, I think I'm getting a fever out of this thing. Anyways, tournament, and just talking about the UFC in general and how things have changed so much, and talking to the peeps. And again, they were talking about the UFC Hamburg show. And again, my old boss and I religiously would watch every UFC event, obviously, every weigh-in, obviously, every embedded, obviously, anything and everything that the UFC would put out there, we would watch religiously, and so would a lot of the fans. And then I went out for with a friend of mine, a sports chiropractor, on Saturday, and we were Dr. Vasco, show him some love. We were just talking. He's like, "Is there UFC on tonight? Why is this bar so dead?" I'm like, "No, UFC's on actually tomorrow." He's like, "On a Sunday?" I go, "You didn't know?" He's like, "How am I supposed to know? We don't know anything up here." Okay, well, that conversation started. And then in general, you get a Sunday afternoon card, largely, Sean, of fighters no one's ever heard of. No one's ever seen. Nobody knows these guys. And you want fans to give up their time to watch that content. When realistically speaking, they'll start watching reruns of Shark Week. Well, Shark Week just started. Yeah. They'll watch something else because there's so many options right now. You've got to give viewers something that is going to encourage them to stay and watch. This is not one of those cards, except for the main event, co-main event, maybe a couple of other fights. And it's just the UFC has to continue to figure out ways to build stars. Stop with the excuse that, everyone said this when Chuck Liddell and Randy Couture and Tito Ortiz retired. Blah 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 blah. Look, Conor McGregor popped up out of nowhere. Oh, boom, Ronda Rousey. Okay, then you're relying on being fluky. Okay, you're relying on luck. You're relying on luck. You're relying on lightning in a bottle. You have the opportunity with all the guys that Sean Ross Sapp just mentioned in the Fight Matrix and your own rankings, put together a damn tournament and get people to fall in love with these guys. They'll follow them.
I agree. Several fights made. Courtney Casey replaces Alexa Grasso at Lincoln against Angela Hill. Solid fight. Jacare Souza against David Branch. That's going to be an interesting one. Both guys like to use their hands, but both guys are very dangerous on the ground. That's set for UFC 230 as well. So they're stacking up the middleweight fights at Madison Square Garden, Joe.
Well, it's an MSG show. Remember when they did when they spent all that money in trying to get mixed martial arts sanctioned and regulated in New York? It was the final state that they were able to get sanctioned and regulation, and they made a promise to anybody and everybody, not just on the political side, but to the fan base out there, that anytime and pretty much every time we have a card in New York, we're going to stack it, which is also Latin for we need to stack these cards so we can make our money back on the millions that they spent on having it sanctioned and regulated. So anything that's MSG related or New York related, chances are it's going to generate more money than most cards because from a business perspective, they got to make that money back. Now, no, Zuffa sold it to WMI, AMG, Ford, Chevrolet, whatever you want to call them people. It's done, but they got to make that money back. So stacking these cards to me doesn't surprise me one bit, and all the better for their product, all the better for the fans out there and the fans tuning in on pay-per-view.
Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold.
Interesting.
Another middleweight fight. Thought one, maybe both of those guys were heading up to light heavyweight.
Yeah.
Not happening. Romero, not happening yet until he misses weight at 230. Then it will. That's a hell of a fight. That's a hell of a fight to put on. And as I say, one guy has to win that fight.
Yeah. I when I first saw the news, I'm like, nah, I don't want to see this fight. I could care less about this fight. And then more I think about it, I'm like, somebody has to win this fight.
Yeah. Right?
Like you said. And it can get real ugly for Luke Rockhold, that's for sure. I mean, for both, actually. Right? But, can Chris Weidman right the wrong that cost him the title? Silly spinning kick in that, was it fourth round? Luke Rockhold obviously wanted to go to light heavyweight and didn't. This is a good fight with some good storylines in it.
Couple of fights added to UFC Denver. Mike Perry versus Donald Cerrone. Frankie Edgar versus Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie's going to have to earn that ranking that I've been complaining about for so long. Mike Perry versus Donald Cerrone, come on. They had to do it at some point. Had to do it. I don't like that
fight for Donald. Yeah, Donald Cerrone is in trouble in my opinion, but I digress.
Yeah.
You never
know.
Edgar
versus Chan Sung Young could be not that great because I think that Edgar outclasses him.
Yeah, you think it's going to be like a target practice fight for Frankie?
Yeah.
All right.
Sam Alvey faces Antonio Rogério Nogueira in Sao Paulo. I guess Satan wouldn't take a fight with Sam Alvey in hell because I'm pretty convinced like he'll just go to wherever people live and fight them in their living room. Sure.
I legit saw that match when it came on the Twitter and on the Facebook and on the Google and was like, Lil Nog is still fighting? How is this guy still fighting?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, his heyday was great, but my goodness, stop.
As we wrap this section up, Carla Esparza faces Tatiana Suarez at UFC 228. It's a hell of a fight. That is a hell of a fight.
That'll be fun.
That's good matchmaking. A couple of big news items this week. There's a lot of miscommunication here. I don't know who to believe. Reports that UFC wants to strip Colby Covington of his newly won welterweight title in favor of Teal facing Woodley. Woodley says he's never gotten a contract. Who do you believe here?
I don't think Woodley's ever lied regarding this type of stuff. And it seems he just has this issue that he will go toe-to-toe with Dana White on anything and everything. Covington, clearly, with the gimmick, we don't know what to believe with him anymore. In my conversations with certain welterweights that have been trying to fight him, he just keeps declining. And it's just like, dude, like, eventually you got to fight, man. So, Darren Till, don't know. I mean, what's your take on this whole scenario? I mean, it's a weird triangle, to be honest with you, but
Woodley sees more pay-per-view buys in Covington, and he wants to fight him.
Yep.
That's how I feel now. Man, I never thought I'd say this again. Poor Anderson Silva. This is weird. I thought for sure he got popped for something that it's hard to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
He didn't do anything wrong in this situation. USADA revealed that it was a contaminated supplement and his suspension is up in October, which begs the question, why is he suspended still? I get it, he can take a fight now and whatever, and it's like, oh, well, that's about as much time as he needs for a camp. No, he fought Cormier on like a day's notice, 3 weeks out from surgery. So no, this is stupid. This is one of the things USADA has to change. Like, I'm starting to understand the argument that people make when they say USADA is hurting the sport. When stuff like this happens, when stuff like Josh Barnett happens, because those two, and even Romero, those are the guys that I am really feeling bad for. These guys who don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore, and then, maybe they did something that they didn't get caught for, but the stuff that they got caught for wasn't their fault. That's rough, man. For a guy like Barnett with the history he has, Silva with the history he has, and Romero with the question marks surrounding his physique, a USADA violation can be just a killer, man. And it seems like every month this happens now, Joe.
To me, it's always been, and I think Junior Dos Santos was the one that said it best.
Him too!
He said with USADA, you're guilty until proven innocent. And what sucks is when, the news comes out or it gets leaked or whatever happens that this fighter has been flagged by USADA. Well, the translation with that is this fighter is guilty of taking a performance-enhancing drug. That's the mentality that, most of us and the general public are going to view that type of information, when in reality, nothing may have happened. Right? So there's a problem there. Look, man, I'm all for drug testing. Don't anyone listening, watching, whatever, don't even kid yourself. I'm 100% in favor of drug testing. Not because it's the right thing to do, it's the wrong thing to do. Sorry, man, but you cannot trust athletes. I'm very, very sorry. And I'm saying this as George St. Pierre is a friend of mine. I don't trust athletes because in a sport, in any sport, especially a combat sport, any edge you can take, any edge you can get, you're probably going to try and take it. Okay? Now, I do know guys that are just anti-PED and as clean as you can possibly imagine, but they should still be drug tested just in case. And it's a sport that you cannot have guys that are amped up on any sort of steroids or performance-enhancing drugs because you're not playing ping pong. You are clubbing your fists and your shin and your elbows and your knees onto another human skull. You don't need extra strength to do that. You need just good technique. So I'm all in favor of drug testing. What I don't like, obviously, Sean, is the USADA crap that they are drug tested and nothing went wrong. And a guy's lost 9 months of his career, his reputation, girl's reputation, whatever. Toast. That sucks, man.
Also sucks the main event decision for Invicta. We have somebody asking about that on our Periscope chat. Jin Yu Frey, you know, an incredibly marketable woman. My God, she looks like an action figure. Technically defeated Mina Grusander. I think that's how you pronounce it. 49-46, 48-47, 48-47. A unanimous decision in what I consider one of the weirdest decisions of all time. I don't know if you watched the fight. Whatever. You could maybe give Fry round 3. Maybe. When I say everybody, the one person that I saw dissent from this scorecard was my boy Drake Riggs, and he still gave it 48-46 to Grusander. Everybody else I saw put up a scorecard had it 49-46 the other way.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. There's, you know, round 5 was a little bit closer. A little bit closer. Man, this is embarrassing. Very, very embarrassing. One round, Fry won. That was number 3. That was it. Got to get, and for Invicta, you got to run it back. You got to run it back. Also, Heather Clark won a fight on that show. Had a couple of nice finishes. Geltmacher's finish in the first round was nice. Elise Anderson submitted Stephanie Alba. Other than that, very missable card. But I don't think UFC Calgary is going to be a missable card, Joe. And fortunately, we were able to speak to one of the big names from this show, Jeremy Stevens. Take a listen, guys. He almost fought earlier this month.
Yeah.
But it didn't end up happening.
Just got a call, random on a Wednesday night. They told me pretty much, to stay ready, that I was next in line if anything was to happen. Getting into fight week, I'm like, okay, nothing's really going to go on. They just have light training, make sure they're cutting weight and everything should be all good. So I don't really think much of it. And then we get a call Wednesday after my second training session, which is like later in the evening, and saying, hey, Max is out, didn't really know or ask why, and you're fighting Brian Ortega. I was like, all right, sweet. So started to, I went on a run later that night. It was 4th of July night. And, fireworks are going off. It kind of reminded me of the movie Sandlot. I'm just out there running. Fireworks are going off. I'm thinking night game. So I take off running. And then, I was talking to my coach, who happened to be, he was sick. He had like a bad sinus infection. He ended up going to the hospital. He was bedridden. And he wasn't even going to be able to make it out there. So I ended up going over to his house, and he's like, yeah, man, you're fighting Brian Ortega, blah, 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 blah. And I ended up, like I said, going out running that night and didn't hear anything back. I heard from Sean. He's like, yeah, I'd love to have you out there. I'm like, hey, listen, I'm just going to go ahead and cut weight out here. I'll fly out tomorrow. 1 in the morning, my coach is blowing me up. He ends up getting a hold of my wife, and I hear, hey, Brian's out of the fight. You're fighting Frankie Edgar for the interim title. I was like, all right, sweet, no problem. Go right back to bed. I didn't really sleep much. A lot of stuff was just kind of going on, running through my head. just trying to tell my brain, shut the fuck up. We'll just handle everything in the morning. I got up in the morning. I started another run. I ended up running for like an hour and a half and crushed out a bike workout for like another 30. So I was well under 159, 158 pounds, and I was going to head out to Vegas and was looking good. Later on, I get a call like after that run. Like, I'm like, man, what's going on? They're going to fly me out. What's going on? They're like, oh, fight's off. Neither O'Brien or Frankie wanted it. And, it was a win-win-win, really, if you look at it. I have a opportunity in front of me here July 28th. There's a chance for me to either fight for an interim, make a shit ton of money and knock somebody the fuck out, or, I look at it like I just got a chance to lose some weight and get ready for my fight. So it was really not really a big deal. I just took it as a plus.
We have a loaded show on Saturday. We'll be doing a live post-show podcast after UFC Calgary. Before we get into this card, Nick Newell gets his opportunity on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series tonight. I just want to say the transition to Contender Series, all thumbs up. It gets way more buzz than tough. You get to pick and choose. Sometimes not a good thing who your winners are, but you are guaranteed someone who wins in an exciting fashion gets a contract. Nobody's going to double leg their way to a win, and that is a part of the game, but it's not exactly what the UFC wants. Do you think he gets it done tonight against Team Alpha Male Project?
My heart will always be with Nick Newell.
Of course.
Let's not kid ourselves, right? I'm going to say yeah.
I think so too. I think he gets a shot. I really think he gets a shot.
Be great, man. Be fantastic.
So, UFC Calgary. I think there are 14 ranked fighters on this show, including 6 on the Fight Pass prelims. I don't need
looking at Fight Pass. It's ridiculous how stacked it is.
I don't need a 13-fight card, but I'm looking up and down this show, and there's just good fights and good personalities. There are interesting people, interesting things on this show. Let's start off with the Fight Pass prelims. You have Ross Pearson, John McDessie. FightfulMMA.com, we have an interview with John McDessie up. He's won 2 of his last 3. Hasn't finished anybody since 2015. And he's facing Ross Pearson, who always comes to fight and saved his career in February in Perth. Pearson get back in the loss column. Does he win? And if he does lose, is he gone? After what will be 5 out of 6?
I don't think he loses.
Or, yeah. You think he wins, huh?
I think he beats McDessie, yeah.
Interesting.
I think he beats McDessie. I know I never go against Canadians. I just look at this fight here, and I look at where both these two guys sort of are. I know Ross has been going through some stuff. I don't know what to think of John anymore, but I think looking at, I'm staring at the almost like a matrix of these two right now. I'm going with Ross.
Sneaky important fight coming up. Caitlin Chikagan, number 7 in the division.
Yep.
Alexis Davis, number 3 in the division. Chikagan has won 3 of 4. She's 2-0 in her last 2 fights. This is the division she needs to be in. Same with Alexa Davis, who has now won 2 in a row. This is a brand new division, so a win here is very, very important. I know Caitlin Chikagan does have a win over my boy Robbie Fox over at Barstool Sports. She whipped his ass in a hilarious segment that you all have to go check out. I think it's from last year. It was so damn funny. He tried to scale the cage to escape, which under WWE rules, Robbie Fox would have won.
Yeah.
This is a hell of a fight, Joe. I'm going with Chikagan.
Same here. And not to take anything away, there's only a 4-year difference between these two.
Whoa.
What?
History has been made. 2 in a row? You're going against the Canadians?
Yeah.
You might as well just stab Bret the Hitman Hart
Never.
right in the chest.
I met him in Calgary, so love Bret. I'm just looking at the matchup here, and I'm not saying that there's a youth advantage so much for Chikagan, but at the same time, I look at, even though that in Alexis's last fight, she did, defeat Carmouche. It was a decision, or was it Carmouche? It was Carmouche, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think Chikagan's going to have a bit more. bit more in the gas tank, whereas Davis, she brings it. It's going to be a tough-ass fight for Caitlin, but I think she figures it out. I think the maul and brawl that Alexis Davis often brings to the cage could work against Caitlin. I just think Caitlin will be ready for it and figure it out.
Another top 15 fight, Nicolau against Ortiz. Ortiz is one of those guys at a plus 205. I'm picking Nicolau, but at 205, plus 205, I got 5 on it for Dustin Ortiz. Let me clarify that, guys. That doesn't mean I'm picking him to win. I just think there's enough of a chance for me to put 5 on it.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's a value bet right there. That's a tough one to break down, though. I think Nicolau should win this, though. Like, I mean, it's just one of those things that the kid is so fast, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah, I'll go with Mateus.
It would be irresponsible. As good as Islam Makhachev is, 15-1. This guy is outstanding. At plus 475 for Cajun Johnson, who has won 4 straight UFC fights, it would be irresponsible for me to not put 5 on it at that line. Plus 475? And Makhachev is a minus 650. And Makhachev is the wave, man. He's real good. So I understand the line. But I got to put 5 on it for Cajun Johnson. But Islam Makhachev is one in this fight.
I'm staying totally away from this fight if I was a wagering man. I would not touch it. I don't see the value because I see plus 500 on one site here, plus 530 on a second site.
I'm over at a site in which I will not name because they aren't paying us nothing.
Yep. But I will say this, though. I think you should, or Jimmy Van, who, by the way, is messaging me during his podcast, trying to crash the podcast. I think that's guys on the live chat and tuned in right now, tell me that's not a perfect Sean Ross Sapp shirt. That quote that he said, it would be what? It would
irresponsible.
It would be irresponsible of me to not put 5 on it.
Yeah.
That is a slogan of slogans right there. I absolutely love it. I personally would not touch this fight because I think Islam wins.
Yeah, I think Islam wins, but I mean, like I said, man, it's a good one. We have Antigulov against Ian Cutelaba. We talked about this light heavyweight division. I think Antigulov wins this. Cutelaba, man, I think it's a thing where he got in the UFC at 22 years old. He's going to go through those growing pains. He's going to see some Anthony Smith experiences in his life where he loses a couple in a row and it looks like he's counted out. And then I could see in 3-4 years he goes on a run. I don't think right now that's the time for his run. I think Antigulov wins this. Yeah,
it's a good fight. But I'll tell you this: if Cutelaba wins, you and I are going to have some serious discussions next Tuesday. I'll be like dead tired because I'll be coming back from Japan. But other than that, me likes this fight. Me likey.
I also like the upcoming fight with Randa Markos and Nina Ansaroff. We heard from Randa Markos. Take a listen.
Where do you feel like a win over Nina puts you in this division? Because I was looking at your record. One thing that's interesting is you alternate between wins and losses. This would be like 2 fights in a row for you in the UFC, which is weird if you think about it because you've been in the UFC for a while.
Yeah, I feel like this is going to be 4 wins in a row for me once I come out of this. I feel like I won that fight in Mexico. It didn't, the results didn't come out in my favor at the end, but when I watch the fight and break it down, I did get that win, and I've only improved since then, and I feel like I'm not taking it as a win-loss, win-loss. This is going to be my 4th victory in a row. So, that's got to stay positive.
No, I like the mindset. I think that's a good way to sort of approach everything. I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. We just had UFC 226 this past weekend, and of course, aside from Daniel Cormier becoming a 2-division champion, everyone's talking about Brock Lesnar returning. I wanted to get your thoughts when you saw everything that happened in the cage with Brock pushing DC and just him being back and getting the title shot. As a fellow fighter, I know not even close to heavyweight, I just want to get your thoughts on that whole thing.
I think it's ridiculous. To be honest, like, come on. He does not look like he's in fighting shape. He looks like he's on steroids, you know what I mean? Like, he looks younger now than he did back when he was fighting, He's obviously on something. I think that the whole him coming in and pushing Daniel Cormier and calling out everybody, this, he's got that, WWE mentality. This is a different sport. I don't like the way that's going. I mean, obviously it's good for the fans, I guess, but I feel like fight fans don't like that stuff. I've heard a lot of bad things about it. People people saying that they didn't like that. I don't think he should come back and fight, but it's not up to me. You know, it's up to the UFC and it's up to the ratings, I guess. So it'll be a good fight for the ratings, but I don't think he should come back. I think that's a bad move.
We're obviously in the middle of summer right now. I know you always get out to the pool and stuff. One of the things I wanted to ask you, is that your pool or is that like a family member? Because I always, like, I'm super jealous. I wish I had like a nice pool like that.
Yeah, that's my pool. Yeah, it's awesome. I always wanted a pool. I actually got this house with a pool just for my family because we never had one growing up, and my nieces and nephews can come over all the time and swim, and I'm kind of like living through them.
Nice.
So
no, that's good.
I made sure I had a pool just so I can enjoy it. I love the sun. I love like the water and everything. I can't swim, but I love.
Really, you don't you don't know how to swim?
No, that's my biggest weakness. It's my kryptonite is deep water.
Now, obviously, Nina Ansaroff has the benefit of training with one of the greatest women's fighters of all time, and her girlfriend Amanda Nunes has won 2 in a row, has really turned things around. She took a long layoff between the Quiche fight and the Lieberger fight, and it looks like it's paid off because she was on her last legs in the UFC and has since turned things around and has beat Angela Hill, which a lot of people didn't think was going to happen. How do you think she matches up with Randa Markos, who alternates wins and losses for a living?
It would be irresponsible for me to not put 5 on it on Randa Markos, although the value isn't necessarily there at plus 125. And I know people are catching on that Nina Ansaroff happens to be the bantamweight champion's girlfriend. I get it. I don't think it translates well in this fight. I think Randa Markos is a bully, and I think she will bully Nina Ansaroff either to a decision or into a holy smokes, I cannot win this fight. I don't want to tap out, so I'm probably going to get punched out or put to sleep. Maybe I'm going to be wrong. I just don't see it in this fight.
Well, I think she is very Canadian. Jordan Meehan faces Alex Morono. We interviewed Alex on the site. Thank you to James Lynch for that. YouTube.com/Fightful. Hit that subscribe button. Morono has had a weird trajectory over the last year and a half or so. He tested positive for marijuana and got his KO win overturned. Shouldn't have been. But otherwise, he's looked very, very good in the UFC. He should have 4 out of 5, with the exception of that weird overturn. Jordan Meehan was a guy who has thought about hanging it up a couple times and came back, won a fight against Eric Silva in December, but I just don't think he's got it to beat Morono. I think that Morono is better now than Meehan ever has been. And Jordan Meehan is still just 28 years old. Isn't that weird to think?
Alex Morono's 27 years old. He's got 18 professional fights. Jordan Meehan is 1 year older, 28, has 42 professional fights.
Again, that we know of.
Yeah. One would assume that would favor Jordan Meehan. One would assume, if you've listened to the Holy Smokes podcast for the better part of 2 years, every time Jordan Meehan's name comes up, we talk about MMA mileage. If you don't know what MMA mileage is, look up the stat. There's an 8-year theory of when a mixed martial artist can begin as a pro, and the 8-year trajectory is when it all starts tailing off. Jordan Meehan has been fighting for who knows how long, since his teens. He's got all the skills in the world. I just don't think with all that MMA mileage on him, he can take the abuse anymore. Mentally he can, physically he cannot. And I think Alex Morono emerges victorious in this fight.
On to the main card, and quite a main card it is. Alex Hernandez turned heads when he knocked out Beneil Dariush in quick fashion. The guy doesn't even have a Wikipedia page yet, and he's a top 15 UFC fighter.
I was going to say the same thing before the show. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Olivier Aubin-Mercier has won 7 of 8, won 4 in a row, beat Evan Dunham his last run out, and did it in under a minute. Whew, I know a lot of people are looking forward to Poirier and Alvarez, but man, this one could be a sleeper opportunity for fight of the night or a bonus of some sort. I'm looking forward to this one. But I think Mercier gets it done, man.
Of all the odds on this card, this is I think the fairest one. I got Aubin Mercier at -140, Alexander Hernandez at +120. It is a close fight, but the edge definitely goes to Olivier Aubin Mercier. I'm always going to say the same thing. I know Olivier's striking is getting better. It gets better every single fight. He's able to showcase it. But I think the longer the fight goes, he will revert back to his #1 game plan, which is to cut the cage off, clinch, get you against the cage, take your back as quickly and as early as possible in a round, and have you defending as much as you can while he aims to get that rear naked choke. I think that's what he's going to try in this fight here, and Hernandez has to stay away, in my opinion. Why give Olivier that opportunity? Punish him from the outside if you can, and go for that knockout. Hurt him.
As far as a back and forth, just war type of card, this is as good a card as UFC could put on Fox right now. This has the potential to be something really great. Before we get into Joanna and Tecia Torres, let's hear what the pros think.
They both have a really strong stand-up background, so we'll see. You know, I think the fight really could go either way.
Joanna, I gotta go with Joanna. Yeah, you know, she got that fire too. Yeah, Joanna's my girl. Joanna all the way.
Oh man, I don't know. I think if Tecia sticks to her game, she can beat Joanna. You know, because she's fast, she's in and out, she's very quick, she's got good combos. If she can just maintain that same mindset the whole time, I think she'll get it done. I personally, I'm not a Joanna fan, and I want to see Tecia win it, and I truly believe she has the attributes and the skill set to do it. It's just going to be whether she can stick to her game plan, you know, if Joanna starts getting the better of her, because Joanna's very big for that category. Ticia's very small, they're kind of on complete opposite ends of the scale, but I do 100% believe in Ticia's skill set, so I'm hoping she gets it done.
Joanna Jardacek, baby. That's my teammate, American Top Team proud, and she's going to knock Tecia out, man. Tecia made a big mistake leaving ATT. You know, she's over in her little comfort zone. You know, she's probably having someone wipe her ass for her, but we work hard at American Top Team. Joanna Jardacek, she's coming back for that belt. She is the strawweight queen. She's going to reclaim her throne soon.
I'm really excited for that fight. Tecia was actually in here last week, and so I got to watch her a little bit, and she is a ball of fire. So I don't know. I think Joanna might have her hands full. It's kind of interesting because she's trained out of the American Top Team where Tecia used to train out of, and so I think it's a good matchup. I want Tecia to win. I'm a fan of Tecia, and so I just really wouldn't want to see her win.
I don't know about that fight. It's going to be an interesting fight. I'm going to lean towards Tecia Torres. I like Joanna, but I think Tecia Torres is going to pull this one out.
Tecia will have to really have made some gains since her last fight to beat Joanna, because I mean, I was on The Ultimate Fighter and I got to train with Joanna every day when I was on there, and she's a monster, you know. She's big and she's strong. So I mean, if I had to pick, I would say probably Joanna.
Joanna.
You all can see the full video, youtube.com/Fightful, or over at FightfulMMA.com. Click our exclusive stab. This one might surprise you, Joe. Tecia Torres, I got 5 on it. At a +225, I got 5 on it. I think Joanna's going to win, but Tecia Torres, I got 5 on it. The reach is a little more than I am comfortable with, though. I
see what you're saying.
The reach is going to be the story of the fight, and the thing is, Tecia Torres loves to pop in and pop out. As the people like Joanna Jędrzejczyk move up to 125, she'll be able to do that a little bit more effectively, the way that she was able to in Invicta, I think. I don't think... She can't fight like that and win Saturday. So I don't think she's going to fight like that and win, or at least try not to. So I think a Hail Mary knockout could happen. Could happen. That being said, I just think the range of Joanna is going to be too much to overcome. The kicks are going to be too much to overcome. She's going to saw away at Torres. I mean, we're talking 5'6" versus 5'1". That's a leap to overcome. It's heavy.
I'm having a challenge in thinking of this fight because my head right away is just, I mean, you look at any matchup that Jacek competes against, or whoever her opponent is, you're going to go with Johanna, with the exception of Thug Rose, right? That's been proven that she's got your number. Hate to break it to you. Not that you don't already know, but I also started thinking about the mindset that Johanna was on top of the world and is now coming down off of 2 straight losses. Wasn't able to retain the title she believes is hers. Hopefully she realizes it's not hers anymore. Against a former teammate in Tecia Torres. Now, do we know if they've trained together when Tecia was over at ATT? Don't know. I would assume so. Maybe we would assume no, because there's a potential that one day they were going to fight each other, and here it is. Tecia Torres is very sneaky. She's fantastic with her legs in terms of getting those kicks up and surprising. I just don't know. I think she's gonna have to be on her bike, because I think Johanna, I would assume, I shouldn't say I think, I would assume Johanna is going to go back into stalking mode, where she's going to stalk Tecia, cut off the cage, and make her pay anytime they are within a phone booth of each other. That's my assumption. I also don't know what to think of Johanna mentally. So it's a tough fight to call, despite, I've got Johanna one side here at -300 with Tecia at +250. Usually I'm more adamant, or I'm more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, yeah, I'll put 5 on it. I would trepidly put 5 on it right now on Tecia Torres.
Still think Johanna's taking the win. Man, Jose Aldo and Jeremy Stephens is a hell of a fight, and it's a pick'em. The odds I'm looking at, -110, both of them. This is just a good fight. Jose Aldo's looking to get back on the right track, and Jeremy Stephens is looking to earn a title shot, essentially. That's what he's doing. And I mean, as we heard from him earlier, he's down for whatever. He doesn't care. I never thought I'd see the day where Jose Aldo lost back-to-back fights, much less lost 3 out of 4, much less hadn't won in 2 years, much less had 1 win since 2014. That's where we are. He fought twice last year, and it was it seems like he's been much more active since losing to Conor McGregor, and that's not something I expected either. This will be his 4th fight in about 2 years. I thought we would see him fight maybe once a year after this. I thought he'd become an attraction. Jose Aldo always has his kicks, but man, if he fires one of them off, you know what's coming from Jeremy Stephens. You know what he's going to do. Jeremy Stephens rarely throws anything unless he intends for it to knock somebody out. How do you think this one's going to
go? What is awesome for 500, Alex? Like, this is going to be ridiculous. I want to see if Jeremy will actually pull off what he did to Gilbert Melendez with those leg kicks after leg kicks after leg kicks. His name was
Giblert.
Giblert, yeah, UFC Reebok deal. I would love to see if Jeremy can pull off the leg kicks. I don't know if he's going to execute them, but I wouldn't be surprised if he throws that as a surprise to Jose Aldo. There's nothing that would make me happier than Jose Aldo returning to his, former pound-for-pound best form. I just don't know if he has it anymore. And he's a slight favorite in most of the sites. He's a favorite on all the sites I'm looking at. Slight favorite. But nothing would also make me happier than Jeremy Stephens continuing his ascension of this 145-pound weight class. I mean, the guy is going to just bring it. And to have a victory over Jose Aldo Jr. on your resume would be absolutely amazing for Jeremy Stephens. So this is a fight here that I literally look at, and I call these like my at home, sitting on the couch, enjoying my coffee fight. Lad, let them go. Let's see what referee, step out of the way. Let's see what these two boys bring to the cage. Go.
So I'm at 51-49 here. I think Stephens is going to take it just based on the career trajectory. But you never know what Jose Aldo is capable of. If Jose Aldo gets aggressive, that's bad for Stephens. Stephens needs to hope that Aldo tries to saw away at him with leg kicks, because that gives Stephens more of an opportunity to counter. However, if Jose Aldo goes at Stevens and boxes him, I think that's a bad day for Stevens. Enough of what we think. Here's what the pros think.
Just got a call, random on a Wednesday night. They told me pretty much, just stay ready, that I was next in line if anything was to happen. Getting into fight week, I'm like, okay, nothing's really going to go on. They just have light training, make sure they're cutting weight and everything should be all good. So I don't really think much of it. And then we get a call Wednesday after my second training session, which is like later in the evening, and saying, hey, Max is out, didn't really know or ask why, and you're fighting Brian Ortega. I was like, all right, sweet. So started to, I went on a run later that night. It was 4th of July night, and, fireworks are going off. It kind of reminded me of the movie Sandlot. I'm just out there running, fireworks are going off.
Apologies, you guys. This is actually what the pros think.
I gotta go Jeremy Stevens. He looks like a killer lately, man. He's reinvented his career. It looks like he's really been putting a lot of hard work in, and Jose Aldo's on the downfall of his career. So, I think Jeremy Stevens is gonna knock him out.
I don't know. That's a close one too. I mean, it depends on what Aldo shows up. I think Aldo might be a broken man after those whoopings from Max Holloway. So. Yeah, I don't know. He might be a broken man, so I got to go with Jeremy. If you're not 100% in there with somebody with them hammers, Jeremy will put his lights out. So Aldo better show up on his P's and Q's. He better show up how he did for that second Frankie fight, because Jeremy going to be looking to take his block off.
That's a tough one. Because Aldo hasn't looked great his last few fights, and Jeremy Stevens has actually looked really good. If I had to bet my money, I would still pick Aldo there.
I love Aldo. Aldo's my type of fighter. A slick, fast striker. Jeremy Stevens is on a roll, though, man. And Aldo has kind of shown that he's got the kink in his armor, that his chin isn't quite what it used to be anymore. And it's tough because he almost had an era of invincibility for quite a while, and that kept him. He was already beating the crap out of guys, you know what I'm saying? He was beating the shit out of people. But when you get tested and you still feel invincible, sometimes you're like, I'm going to find a way out of it. He's kind of learned now, though, that, look, like, I get in that position now, and I don't always find a way out. And I think it may have taken some of his will away. And so for that reason, and because of the recent victories that Stevens has had, I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, I hate talking about that fight because Jose Aldo is one of my, foreground heroes, coming up. I used to mimic him as a kid. And, there's kind of an edge that he's not really displaying that he had before. His game's changed. I mean, anybody can tell you that and see that. And Jeremy Stevens been on a tire, kind of a killing spree, putting people down. And so if you look at the odds of the way the momentum's kind of turning, you would say Jeremy's got it. And I'm slightly inclined to say that myself. But I do love Jose, so it's a bitter pill. But I think Jeremy might have that fight.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
See the full clip over at youtube.com/Fightful or FightfulMMA.com, our exclusive section. Alex Hernandez, who you saw there, we talked about earlier, revealed to Fightful.com exclusively he is going to be added to EA UFC 3. Main event time, Joe. Alvarez. Poirier. Man, what a fight.
Under no circumstances will you at any point in time try and contact me during this fight. My phone will be off. My phone will be on silent mode. My phone will be in another room. My phone will be in my truck. I might leave my phone wherever I am during the day and worry about picking it up the next day, because this is a fight we are all lucky to have again. They are running it back. Just look at who these two guys, look at when they fought, and then look at who they both fought last. Look how they emerged victorious against the person they fought last, in Justin Gaethje. And now these two guys are going to settle a crazy-ass score, and at the same time, can we say that Eddie Alvarez? I mean, the Eddie Alvarez Justin Gaethje fight was pumped and promoted for a non-UFC title, but what was the title that we all gave them?
I can't remember.
The baddest man, not the baddest man in the UFC. It had something to do with just the
shit-eating wild man. That's Matt Riddle. He's the shit-eating wild man of professional wrestling.
Just this fight, this main event. This is anything and everything that the UFC, who has not wanted. They finally came out and said, we owe Calgary. We owe Calgary for what happened.
I was going to ask you about that. Do you think they made it up?
Oh, just this fight alone. Just this fight alone. Show up, watch the main event, go home. I mean, just don't do that, but this fight alone
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
2013, right?
Yeah, but there's tons of backstories around that none of them really went public. I mean, you can thank the Calgary media for that one and some of the fans, but it is what it is right now, and they got their show back, and most violent man. Thanks, Vinny. Most violent man.
It was 2012, so it's been 6 years coming. Yeah. Because if I remember, actually, funny that we mentioned Matt Riddle, I thought his promo was the highlight of that entire night.
It was pretty good. Yeah.
His Buttertooth Brit promo.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. This fight's just going to be ridiculous. I'm leaning towards Dustin Poirier.
What am I supposed to break down here? They're going to go in. They're going to slug it out. Alvarez claims he's going to keep his chin down a little bit more. Here's what the pros think.
Dustin Poirier is going to put him out lights out. It's first round. It's not even going to be competitive. I mean, their first fight, he was going to put him out until Eddie Alvarez had to do that illegal knee. So, now Dustin Poirier is more experienced. He's had a lot more training in the gym, and he's looked like a new animal these days. So I see Dustin Diamond Poirier doing what he does, shining bright, and stealing that title shot by knocking out Eddie Alvarez.
Man, honestly, my fight versus Poirier was just I got cut 2 weeks before the fight. I'm no excuses, but I didn't get to feel the pressure on that. His striking is a lot harder than Eddie's. Eddie's, I didn't feel in danger at all. Eddie's wrestling was a lot stronger than his, so I feel like it just depends what game plan they bring into it.
That's another one I don't know. That's another really good fight. The first one, obviously, I think Poirier was getting the best of that one, but then Eddie comes in and against Gaethje and looks like a savage. So Poirier's on a roll, man. It's unfortunate that both of those guys have to fight each other, because I think that they could probably both sit, and there's a good chance that either one of those guys could end up with a title shot. So I think there's definitely some motivation for the winner. Probably is next in line, but it is unfortunate that they have to fight, and they can't just wait one after the another and just get a title shot back to back. But I'm gonna go with Eddie Alvarez.
I think Poirier should win. I think I've never believed Eddie Alvarez was one of the best fighters in the world. Even though this dude became a world champion, I mean, I've never believed that he was. At any time, I've always believed there was 5 or 10 guys in our division that would always beat that guy. I felt like he got, Poirier's fought some tough competition. He's earned his rights to be where he's at. I feel like Eddie Alvarez just had a big name from another organization that came over, and we got gifted the decision by Melendez, and I just feel like he never realistically should have never even got the world title shot, but he got it, and he did the best with it. So I'm not hating, but I just don't. I think it's still going to be a competitive fight, but I think that Poirier should win that fight.
Yeah, it's tear, man. No tear. His confidence is super high. He thinks he broke Eddie last time. So, yeah, I think Poirier will take it.
Man, that's a tough one. That's a really tough fight to call. I mean, we saw in the last fight, those guys both had their moments back and forth before the crummy circumstances with the illegal strike. I think I'm going to have to go with age before beauty. Eddie Alvarez has his fancy eyebrows. He might be a, well-groomed guy, but I'm going to have to go with age. I'm going to have to go with the younger man, Dustin Poirier.
I'm a huge fan of Poirier. I actually like both guys, but I'm a really big fan of Poirier. At the Athlete Summit, his wife and my fiance became friends, so we all got to hang out for a little while. And man, I just like the way he fights. We have some common opponents, before we got in the UFC. And I think Poirier wins that one by TKO in the second. But yeah, they've both been looking really well. But I'd love to see Poirier win this fight and then make a title run and be the champ. That'd be great.
No, that's a tough one.
You all know where to find that full video. A couple of notes. Ariel Helwani tweeted just now that Romero versus Costa is not 100% agreed to, even though UFC announced it. Why do they keep doing this shit, man? They do this all the time.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Let them know where they can follow you on social media, Joe.
At Showdown Joe, at Sean Ross Sapp. Make sure you guys follow me. I'm thinking for the very first time of doing a live Instagram story or something Instagram-ish as before I leave for Japan, maybe when I'm in Japan.
Excited.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I've never done it before, so I'm going to probably do it. I'll screw it up and have to restart it 17, 18 times, but I may give it a shot and just, because I could be bored at certain points. It's a long day, it's a long flight, and a long time to come all the way back, although I'll be loading up my iPad with all kinds of Netflix downloads, and we'll see what's up. But other than that, I get to call Horiguchi's fight. It's going to be some fun stuff going down in Japan, ladies and gentlemen.
Tell us a little bit about that show before we go.
I just had the final card sent to me right before we went on the air. Give me 1 second here. I mean, the main event is a ladies scrap. It's a rematch, and it's actually going to be a pretty sick fight between Asakura and Reina. If you know anything about Asakura and Reina, that's a sick rematch because it was Asakura that defeated Reina in the Atomweight Grand Prix. They are former training partners that, Reina was on this huge shootboxing high, almost like the queen of Japan's MMA, and Asakura is this very humble, quiet. She gets into the ring and just kicks ass. So that's going to be a very fun main event. Horiguchi's taking on Okikubo, who hasn't lost since losing to Horiguchi back in like 2013 or something like that. So he's a Shudo champ right now, and these two guys have been wanting to get at each other for quite some time. Gomi's taking on Melvin Gillard. That's going to be fun. I can't see that one going the distance. Somebody will likely be going on to sleep. Kitaoka taking on Diego Brandao. That's going to be a fun fight. You got one nutcase against another nutcase. I guess if that's how you want to verbalize it, that's probably how you should verbalize it because they're both absolutely crazy. And to kick things off, Darren Cruikshank against a guy named Tom Santos from Brazil. That's going to be absolutely insane. So right off the bat, Rising will kick things off. It's available on Fight TV, by the way, guys, so make sure you do purchase it, take a look at it. It's going to be fantastic. And Frank Trigg and I will have the call. Jason Herzog will be one of the refs. It's Rising. And you know that opening is going to be ridiculous. So I can't wait. I really cannot wait. Oh, Rin Nakai is also competing, by the way. So it's going to be fantastic.
Guys, check it out. Of course, check out my live post shows Saturday evening after UFC Calgary. Visit Fightful.mma.com. Trying to really push the MMA side of things. Of course, we are well established as a source within pro wrestling, but it's a good old boys club at MMA, as Showdown Joe will attest to. But if you don't mind, retweet some of our stories from Fightful MMA. Let people know about them, especially our exclusives. That kind of stuff really, really helps us as we're trying to bring you journalism in a different way, in a better way. We want to give you everything. So thank you guys so much. We are